Good morning, world. Welcome to another episode of Xendependently Minded. If you are a new or returning listener, I truly hope you enjoy this episode. Before we get into the episode, here's a brief disclaimer. Enjoy. The views and opinions expressed by past, present, and future guests of Xendependently Minded have not been expressed by me, and they may not even be shared by me. The views and opinions that I express are, of course, satirical. If you're confused, then try this thought experiment to help you understand. If you like what I said, or say, and you agree, then you can tell yourself that it is my real opinion, and it's not satirical. If you don't agree with what I say, and you're disgusted and repulsed by it, then obviously I'm just being satirical. Obviously, these aren't my real opinions, because this is clearly a character, and nobody would actually have these opinions, would they? Anyway, enjoy the episode. How's it going, boys and girls? It's your favorite Democratic representative, Sheriff Phyllis McCormick. Yes, that is a real name, and that is a person I'm going to talk about on this episode. Back at it with another episode of Whodunit. It's your boy. I already said that. It's your boy, Sheriff Phyllis. Got a lot to talk about. It's been a month since I last talked to you. This is going to be probably the last episode of the year, and there's some juicy things to talk about, including, multiple things that I predicted that people should probably start listening to and paying attention to, because I know what I'm talking about sometimes. Well, most of the time I don't, but sometimes I do. The 5% of the time that I'm right overshadows the 95% of the time I'm wrong. So, anyway, just to give you a little hint on what's to come and what's to be discussed on this episode of Xendependently Minded. Number one, going to be talking about NATO, European Union, and some military stuff. Going to be talking about Democratic Representative Sheriff Phyllis McCormick and the scam that he was indicted on recently. The Epstein files, which were released, and parts of it were released, and it looks like there are some implications there, at least as far as the current administration goes, but not the way that probably people think or want. Well, maybe some people want, but we'll get to that. Be talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene again, and how much she sucks. I'm going to be talking about the Nationalguardsmen shooting. I'm going to talk about Bondi Beach a little bit, or Bondi, I don't know how you say it. And then I'm going to talk about two very important, monumental wins for children that we're seeing because of RFK Jr. So, first thing I wanted to talk about, what's going on in Europe, the state of Europe, the middle of the world, They call Iran the cradle of civilization, but the new cradle of civilization, really for the past 2,000 years, has been Europe, in my opinion. Europe is a special place. There's a reason why I've been here for 6.5 years. It's a special place, but it's been having some serious problems, in particular, NATO and European Union issues. So the past couple days, there have been some pretty violent riots, some damage being done in Brussels in response to some new farmer bills, some farmer tax that's hurting farmers further. This happened a couple of years ago. There were every single tractor, it felt like across Western and Central Europe was crowding the roads in response to there was a tax break that was getting the European Union decided to get rid of, even though member states don't always have to vote on something for it to be passed. To become like the law of the land for across the European Union. So you have member states, you have independent, quote-unquote, sovereign nations that don't vote for something, or they don't get a chance at all, or they don't vote yes, it still gets passed, and they still have to adhere to it. And we're seeing a lot of disobeying from the more powerful countries, but the countries that rely on the European Union and its aid, they don't really get the choice. They can't really stand up for themselves as well. But there are exceptions to this rule. Poland and Hungary, I believe, are among the biggest recipients of EU aid, but they are constantly not listening when it comes to following the migrant quota. There's a certain amount of immigrants that Hungary and Poland, that every European Union countries need to take. Poland and Hungary, do not meet that quota, and they have to pay a massive fine to the European Union every single day. It seems like Hungary Hungary is one of the few, I would almost say, sovereign nations in the entire European Union. It's also one of the safest. And the same with Poland. Poland is by far the safest country in the entire European Union. You could say that part of it might have something to do with, the fact that it's a sparsely populated country, not a lot of people there. But a big one is that they don't take a lot of unchecked, unfiltered, unregulated immigrants into their country. And when you go to the Christmas markets there, I've heard, I haven't been, you don't have anti-tank barriers and soldiers standing around with assault rifles. But you know where they do? My current home right now, and in France, and the rest of Western Europe, there are anti-tank barriers and super soldiers with automatic weapons there to deter any people from a certain part of the world from driving through and committing terrorist attacks. Which, by the way, there was a small Christmas market in the state of Bavaria in Germany where there was a terrorist plot that was foiled. Couple people, there's 4 people involved, I believe, in this conspiracy, in this terrorist plot. 3 of them were from the Middle East, 1 was from Egypt. So the EU is having problems with member states getting antsy, getting upset with their sovereignty. Giorgia Meloni has caught a lot of crap because she keeps trying to turn away the boats that France is allowing to go up through Italy from Africa because they don't want to take these unchecked, unfiltered migrants. Italy has problems of its own. It's having economic issues. It's having inflation issues. Energy costs, of course, really affect all of Europe except for energy-dependent, independent nations like Norway. So, coincidentally enough, a lot of these economic issues do not plague, especially sovereignty issues, do not plague the non-EU states. So it's almost like the EU is the problem. It's been a problem. It completely destroys sovereignty. It helps out countries that need aid. It helps with freedom of movement. And if you're if you're a member of a citizen of one EU state, you can live in any EU state and work freely. And so there's benefits to it. But there is a lady, a supreme leader, almost, and she just dictates everything. The bureaucracy down in Brussels dictates a lot of it, and this is mainly why the United Kingdom left. This is reason why Germany has floated the idea of leaving. Italy would love to leave. And if that happened, that would be the end of the EU because Germany and Italy are in the top 5 for for not participants, but contributors of aid to the European Union. And like I said, a lot of the Eastern Bloc countries are the countries that take the most aid. Anyway, on the NATO side, it's really funny because I have this conversation with my German colleagues all the time where a lot of them, really all of them, they hate Trump. They hate how much the United States has overstepped this and this and that. I had a conversation with 3 of them where they were like, they should disobey whenever Trump comes. Why can't they stand up to him? Why can't they blah, blah, blah? And I said, because everybody knows. Like Trump said in that interview, NATO calls me daddy. It's completely true. They all talk as much crap as they want. As soon as he comes, they get down on their knees, they beg, they apologize, they kiss his feet, because they know that NATO is the reason for, one, not just protection and a deterrent against Russia, which, if the United States wasn't in NATO, Russia still wouldn't try to invade Europe. It's stupid. They haven't been able to invade Ukraine. They haven't been able to take over Ukraine. Why would they try to take over the rest of Europe? It's stupid. It's never once happened. Russia's economy is starting to feel the pain. They've lost a lot more men than they should have, even though they have a lot more men. Still, regardless, the United States has been a big deterrent to Russia, and if it wasn't for the United States, I truly believe that Europe would be at war again. There are multiple different countries in the European Union that hate each other, in NATO that hate each other. They're chomping at the bit to constantly... People talk about racism in America. Racism is nothing compared to the racism in Europe. You got Turks and Bulgarians and Greeks, they all want to kill each other. Croatians and Bosnians just a couple decades ago were blowing each other up. There's still mines that are laid across Croatia that make it one of the most dangerous countries in Europe to just go, a kid goes and hits a ball out into the forest and then goes to get it and gets their arms blown off. Everybody's chomping at the bit to get revenge on each other for stupid blood feuds that have taken place over the past, I don't know, the past 1,500 years or so. But if it wasn't for us, there would be much more turmoil across Europe. That's just a fact. Also, NATO and European leaders have been ignoring the President of the United States multiple times for multiple presidencies. They've repeatedly violated agreements like defense spending. And now that sanctions and a reliance on Russian oil has hit all of their economies, all of a sudden, they demand that the United States listens to them. That's been the funny part. So during this entire negotiation, waves of negotiations that the United States is trying to mediate between Ukraine and Russia, constantly there are European leaders that are like, no, listen to us, you have to protect us, what about us? Well, we've been warning you about this. We'll continue to protect you, but you better spend your 5%. You better spend your 5%. And you're starting to see the most sickening rhetoric come from big countries like Germany, the United Kingdom, which is not part of the EU, but part of NATO, France, where they're just openly saying, young German men need to die, need to be prepared to die and die for their countries. Young Frenchmen children need to be ready to sacrifice themselves for the rest of the good of the country. How about fuck you? How about no? How about you take your happy ass to the front lines and go die for some stupid war that most people don't even know anything about and most people can't even get behind anymore? The only European leader that has any balls is Giorgia Meloni of Italy, and the deputy prime minister, who also said, we will not be sending our children to die in Russia. European countries have a lot of problems that they just for some reason feel like they need to blame it all on Russia, which is true. And I promise you this, if there was a mandatory service call across NATO, they would have such low numbers, they probably just have to cancel the war outright if they decided to declare war. It's not happening. In a defensive war, yes. In a defensive war where the United Kingdom is attacked, yeah, maybe white British men will be willing to go fight and die for their country. But for a war that was provoked by the leaders, by old politicians that have nuclear bunkers, that have kids that have waivers that won't have to fight in the war, for men and women politicians that would never step up to the front lines to die in Russia, to die in some hellhole, to die in some muddy slog, cold forest, some gray, snowy, frozen forest, dying, getting your arms blown off by a missile that probably a Ukrainian missed and hit you with. Really? No German men and women want to die for that. No French men and women want to die for that. That's why the volunteer service that was just passed by Parliament in Germany, is resulting in very low numbers. And they said that if they don't hit the numbers that they want, they're going to have a mandatory service. That's not going to work out for you, I promise. And what's the plan here? Send your young men and women to die? Send your young men to die so that who occupies the country? Middle Eastern refugees? So Germany needs more kebab shops, huh? Germany needs more falafel shops. Germany needs more shawarma shops, really. A fifth of Germany's population are people that were not born in Germany. Granted, a lot of those are people from other European countries, but another big percentage of that after that, I think an eighth of those, an eighth of a fifth. So an eighth of a fifth of the country, of the population, were people that were not even born in Europe. So you need more of that? You want no German men, you want no German culture, the German culture that everybody loves, that people around the world fly into to see, to witness, especially every October, every fall to winter. You want that to be destroyed? The answer is yes. It's not going to happen, though. I can guarantee you that. I've never met a single French, Italian, British, or German man who was super excited and thrilled to go die in Russia. They're not. I'm sorry. It's 2025, and we're as anti-war as a human race as ever, and that's a good thing. That is a good thing. So the longer that this war goes on, the more innocent Ukrainians die, also innocent Russians. And regardless, the president needs to not listen to third parties. The only people that matter here are Russia and Ukraine, and then the United States as the mediators. So this war must end, no matter how unhappy third parties are. Period. The next thing I wanted to talk about. So, Democratic Representative Chair Phyllis McCormick, which is a real person, real member of Congress, was just indicted for stealing $5 million in disaster funds. Which is funny because it wasn't a widely talked about story, but every time somebody accidentally loses like $2,000 on the other side, it's like frontline headlines for weeks. But when this Democrat is out here stealing $5 million in disaster funds, it's not talked about. So, ironically, this is a woman. I forgot this is a woman. Ironically, this lady also spent campaign and rally funding to lie about the Haitian immigrants who were actually eating swans and cats. And of course she lied. She's a Congress member. So if you guys don't remember, Trump famously on the debate stage said that these Ohio Haitian immigrants were eating the dogs, they were eating the cats, and it was completely true. There are videos of immigrants just going down to the local pond, taking the swans and just chopping their heads off right there, cooking them in a crazy like voodoo style ritual in their backyard. I mean, I've never eaten swan. Don't knock it till you try it. But I'm not a fan of people eating people's cats. I'm sorry. We're supposed to be a first world country, and we don't eat cats in this country. I'm sorry. So if you want to eat cats, go back to your voodoo ritual infested dump of a country, no offense, and eat your cats there. It's really simple. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is stepping down 2 days after she gets her lifetime six-figure pension in January 2026. I know this is old news, but she's been having a Candace Owens level mental breakdown. She's still making widespread American issues about her, like the Epstein files. Those are about her. She's now posting to Twitter about death threats, seemingly instead of alerting the authorities. And I did look into this more, and I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you didn't get any death threats. I'm sure she has, and I take those very seriously. Death threats are not okay, no matter who they're against. They should be taken seriously. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, she spent her entire career as a congresswoman doing absolutely nothing. She did nothing up until recently when she co-sponsored a bill to get rid of transgender surgeries for minors, I believe, which was the only thing she did. And that was a big deal. That was a good move that she made. But it took her 5 years to do it. It took her 6 years to do it almost. So she's done absolutely nothing as a congresswoman. She's a fraud. She always has been. She, like I said, she enriched herself with insider trading, allegedly. She bought Lockheed Martin stock a couple days before Russia invaded Ukraine, and then she tweeted about how bad stock trading was, how corrupt it was to profit yourself off of war when you're a member of Congress, as she's doing it. She never sponsored an important bill that got close to becoming a law until recently. She's the quintessential loony, performative politician that Americans like myself are sick of. That's why they elected real estate mogul with no political experience, aka Donald Trump. Empty suit actors with fake stories, fake accents, fake passion. They are why Americans tossed this Hail Mary to Trump twice. Some might even argue 3 times in 2020. I genuinely hope the best for Marjorie Taylor Greene. I do believe that she's received threats, and I'm not being facetious about that. I take those seriously, and I hope that those people are brought to justice. I just hope that she genuinely never, ever, ever gets within a 50-mile radius of a position of power. She can continue to run her construction company. She can continue siphoning illegals into her construction company. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the death threats are not okay. Politics does ignite the worst in people. But she's just been playing professional victim in order to posture herself for a career with CNN or Fox or MSNBC. And then I guarantee you she's going to sign an 8-figure book deal, which will be ghostwritten, by the way. She came at Trump and she missed. She pulled a Liz Cheney and she missed. But at least with Liz Cheney was always an anti-Trumper. And she completely embarrassed herself. She lost her re-election bid by like 30 points because she betrayed her constituents. And now she's just sitting back crying and drying her eyes with her dad's war profiteer money. For those of you guys who aren't aware, Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney's dad, he was the CEO of Halliburton while he was the vice president. Coincidentally, the Department of Defense was awarding no-bid contracts to Halliburton while Dick Cheney was the CEO, while Dick Cheney was the vice president. Strange. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, she got greedy. She could have continued allegedly insider trading and brought her net worth to be even higher, but she got greedy. It's a classic boneheaded, empty suit fraud move. Her and Liz Cheney can join forces, and write a book called We Missed All the Shots We Took, How to Fail and Make Millions as You Do It. Screw Marjorie Taylor Greene. She blows. So, the Epstein files have been released, and midwit idiots won't be satisfied because, well, one, they're right to not be satisfied now. I don't know if they're going to come in waves, but regardless, as I've said before, people are not going to be satisfied because they're stupid and they don't know how things work. People just don't understand how these things work. These files are boring. Besides the pictures, there's not going to be a file that says, here's the list of Epstein's clients. The files are going to be boring. They're going to be a bunch of dribble, just like a lot of what the JFK files are. People are going to be unsatisfied, and then they're going to end up just saying, well, see, Trump redacted everything because it was actually the Jews, it was actually Israel, blah, blah, blah. Was Epstein a Mossad agent? Probably. What are we going to do about it, though? What's going to be done about it? Is there anything that we can do about it? I want to know who's in the Epstein files. I want those people to be brought to justice. But people like the JFK files, they're going to be left unsatisfied because they've let their brains convince themselves, get themselves caught up in these conspiracy theories to the point where nothing is going to satisfy them. So some of the files were released, some of them were some images. Like I said, people don't understand files or lawsuits or evidence or jury staining or how to have expectations rooted in reality. So all we've gotten so far is Trump is not implicated in any meaningful way. Like I said, if he was, the Biden administration, the Obamas, the Clintons, the Democratic Party, the Democratic establishment, they would have used it to bury him a long time ago. But Michael Jackson, Kevin Spacey, Mick Jagger, and Chris Tucker are in there. There's pictures of them next to Epstein hanging out. It's really quite strange to see Michael Jackson there. You know, it's the people you least expect, huh? But we're going to have to see, what comes next. There's a possibility I saw that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie have brought up articles of impeachment to Attorney General Pam Bondi for her absolutely disgusting, terrible handling of the Epstein files. It's been a complete joke. It's been like a satire. It's been like an SNL skit since she got into power. Hopefully Trump can put somebody else in that is respected, that takes the job seriously, that doesn't treat it like a reality TV show where she's like, I got the Epstein files on my desk right now. No, you don't. You don't have anything on your desk. You're fake. You're a fraud. Go back to doing whatever you did before. Stay away from power. Her and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Liz Cheney can all start the Three Musket Diapers podcast, where they just sit around and they play professional victim, and whoever wins the highest prize gets awarded $15,000 in Lockheed Martin stock. Next bit of news I wanted to talk about is something that's really infuriated me since it happened. Happened a couple weeks ago. Still not okay. Still not over it. I'm still upset about it. But a 29-year-old Afghani national shouted Allah Akbar and shot and killed 2 National Guardsmen. One was a woman, one was a man, and I believe injured a couple others. Rest in peace to those 2, the young man and woman killed by this animal. Apparently, this man came legally in 2021 in the wake of the disastrous Afghanistan pullout. So why is he here? Afghanistan is a level 4 exercise caution country that you cannot go to without having special permission. So why are we taking their citizens? Why does the government and the entire world know that this is a dangerous war-torn country, yet we will still allow their citizens to come under refugee status? Yes, I understand. I know. He came legally through Operation Allies Welcome, which was a Biden administration program to bring over the people that helped us while over in Afghanistan. Should these people get help? Yes. But they need to have extraordinarily detailed, permanent vetting. Permanent vetting. I've heard so many stories from people who served in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, were part of units that trained up and armed the supposed good guys, and they would constantly have to have somebody else watching their backs for them, because what happened a lot of the times is that they would take these weapons, take this intel to the Taliban, defect to the other side, or they would just straight up start shooting at the Americans as soon as their backs were turned. Why did our taxpayer dollars get spent on someone who killed 2 Americans? I hope people realize this. Our taxpayer dollars funded the deaths of 2 Americans on our soil. It's horrible when there's a loss of human life. It's horrible when there's a loss of American lives, on deployments overseas. But we funded the killings of 2 Americans on American soil in our capital city. This has to stop, either because of Trump's immediate halting of immigration from the third world, or the citizens may lose their cool and start a revolution. And I don't want to see that. I don't want a revolution. Revolutions are bloody. Revolutions, I'm talking about what we saw happen in the UK last year, when men across the UK were just going to migrant hotels, assaulting anybody that they saw that looked brown. Except it'll be worse because Americans have guns. So this needs to stop. I'd much prefer a legitimate fix to this. Regardless, though, it has to stop. I thought there's no way, when you have these terrorist attacks from people from the Middle East, it's like any given Tuesday in Europe. But when it comes to the United States, I can't believe it. I never thought it would. But yet here we are. We need to work on our problems first before we accept refugees from countries that previous administrations destroyed. 4 administrations before had destroyed this country. We had a disastrous pullout that not a single veteran across the world has ever said a good thing about. And we need to focus on our domestic issues. There needs to be permanent vetting for people like this. You can't just trust that this guy is going to stay a pro-American once he gets to the United States. He needs to be vetted. The second that there's a red flag, he needs to be shipped back. Ship him somewhere else. I don't care where he goes, just ship him far away from the United States. Ship him as far away possible, as soon as there's a red flag. There needs to be a vetting status. He needs to be tracked. He needs to check in once a month. He needs to get a mental health evaluation every single month, every 3 months, every 6 months. I don't care. Needs to be tracked. Social media needs to be tracked, needs to be monitored. He needs to have a job. He needs to speak English. The second he says anything even close to anti-American, revoke his status, ship him on the first plane out. That's where we're at. That's where we have to be. Because like I said, this isn't the first time that a person that's supposed to be on the good guy's side, quote unquote, turns their back and starts shooting Americans. Just because he's anti-Taliban doesn't mean he's pro-American. There are a lot of people in Afghanistan that are anti-Taliban that would shoot American people the second they got a chance. I've shared the story before about the friend that I know that served in Afghanistan, was sleeping in his inside of his little tent area where it was the American forces and the Afghanis, and then all of a sudden he heard some shooting because there was a guy, a goat farmer, who was trying to get his son, who was getting tossed around, used as a bakabazi toy by the Afghanis. So the good guys, the Afghani military, the Afghani National Army, or whatever you call them, they were using a boy as a toy. And an angry goat farmer came to go get his son back, shooting at them. These are the people that we're letting into our country. These are the people that we are funding to kill Americans on our soil. These issues need to be focused on instead of military action in Venezuela. Although Venezuelan military action it's a larger piece of our battle for world domination over China. Because for those of you who don't know, about 85% of Venezuelan oil gets bought by China. It's crude oil. It's trash oil. It's not really worth anything. That's not why we're taking action against Venezuela to take their oil. It's because China depends on it. And whoever just look across Europe. Europe is having economic issues directly tied to oil, because the second you have an oil issue, the price of oil goes up, the price of everything goes up, because every single thing relies on oil in this day and age. And it will continue to be like that for a long time. Regardless, domestic issues need to be focused on, because Trump is losing support. He's bleeding support from young people by allowing things like this to happen, by not addressing it for real. J.D. Vance is out here just tweeting things rather than actually doing anything. He tweets, and everybody knows it's absolutely nothing. Nothing will happen. Something better happen. Because people are not going to deal with this. People are chomping at the bit. They're looking for an excuse to get violent, which I do not endorse. But you have to address things like this. You have to increase the vetting status quality. And you need to vet these people. If you're going to take them in, vet them forever. Never stop monitoring them and regulating them. The same should go for really any immigrant that we take in. That might be a tall task, but if it can't be done right, don't do it at all. Don't do it at all if you can't do it right. So there was a big shooting in Australia, a place with some of the strictest gun control in the entire world. Bondi Beach saw 15 people killed and much more injured. This was a deliberate attack by two radical Islamists. They were stopped by a non-radical Muslim, and the shooting was purposely done at a Hanukkah festival. This was purposely done to attack Jewish people. This is what globalized the Intifada looks like. So when Western college students chant "From the river to the sea" and globalize the Intifada, this is what they mean. This is what it looks like. Intifada is a word, it stands for like resistance or something. But anybody who knows anything about what the word contextually means, historic-wise, for the past 80 years, knows that it's not just a word for resistance. What does resistance look like? Does it look like, oh, we're going to put on our boxing gloves and box each other? No, it means suicide bombers blowing up children's buses, school buses. That's what an intifada looks like. Terrorist attacks all across Israel. That's what intifada looks like. There were multiple intifadas since Israel became a nation, but this is what it looks like. You get what you get. What's insane is that there have been so many people saying, well, the savior was Muslim, so you shouldn't get rid of all of them. If there were no Muslims in Australia, then the shooter would have never stopped these guys. If there were no Muslims in Australia, the shooting wouldn't have happened, period. Now, I'm not saying that all Muslims are violent. That's not true. That's not the case. The unfortunate reality is that in the top, 100 terrorist watch lists, most of them are Islamist terrorist groups. Also, unfortunately, people don't realize this because they do it to everybody, but the biggest victim of Islamic terror are Muslims. Arabs. Arabic Muslims are the biggest victims of this terror. And when you import these types of people into your country and you don't vet them, this is what they do. They were part of a gun club. They did everything that you're supposed to legally do to get a gun, and then they fired upon people who also weren't able to defend themselves. This is what happens. This is exactly what happens. The problem that I've always said with Islamism is that it rules with an iron fist and coercion and violence. So peaceful Muslims can't defend themselves. Peaceful Muslims can't do anything about it. They are completely maimed. They're completely taken over and dominated by Islamists. That's why in order to have a functioning Muslim country, which there are a few, and they are among the safest, richest, most trustworthy societies is that you have to rule with an iron fist. Saudi Arabia doesn't deal with crap like this. The United Arab Emirates doesn't deal with crap like this. And I'm not saying that these are great places. They're not. They're pretty ass backwards with a lot of things, but they don't have terrorist attacks because they don't deal with crap like this. So my heart goes out to everybody who is affected here. Like I said, vetting processes need to be permanent. 10, 15, 20 years could still pass, but they need to have psychological exams and a ticket back to the Middle East the second there's a red flag. If you're going to take refugees, they need to be vetted, they need to be regulated, and they need to be monitored permanently. It doesn't matter if 20 years have passed. 20 years and a day could pass and they decide, oh, Australia is complicit in what's happening in Palestine. Let's go shoot up a beach full of Jews on Hanukkah. There's something extra sinister about, end of the year holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, things like that. Christmas has really been under attack for the past 10 years or so. There's a terrorist attack either thwarted or that takes place across the Western world every single year now. It's like the most joyous time of the year, the most beautiful time of the year, and that's why it's attacked on purpose. It's done on purpose. Because evil cannot create, it can only destroy. And Islamic terror, is some of the purest forms of evil that I've ever seen. I've luckily never had to witness it up close and personal myself, but I can see it from afar, and it genuinely shakes me to the core. Islamic terror is a problem, and it should be dealt with. The last thing I wanted to talk about, ending this on a positive note, positive if you're not a devil worshiper, transgender surgery is now going to be banned for minors in the United States. This is a huge win for children. Liars and pieces of shit like Jimmy Kimmel, he got on his show and he included in his monologue something where he talked about, it's horrible because this is a surgery that barely happens. It very rarely happens. So if that's the case, Mr. Kimmel, why is it a big deal to ban them? If it's something that never happens, then why so much pushback? Why so much resistance? For banning transgender surgeries, which the past year, there were 13,000 of these types of surgeries the past couple years in the United States alone. By the way, countries that don't have their heads so far up their asses have banned these surgeries a long time ago. The United Kingdom even banned them. And the UK can't do anything right. They can't do food right. They can't do dentistry right. They can't do immigration. They can't do military. They can't do anything right. But they can do this right. They beat us to the punch. It's the first time that this is the first victory they've had over us in centuries. But so if it barely happens, why is it such a big deal that it's getting banned? Everybody knows it's happening. It shouldn't happen. There should be zero. Permanent castration and mutilation of the body should never happen either way, in my opinion, but it should definitely not happen to unconsenting children, because children cannot consent. We have age of consent laws for other things, but when it comes to permanently mutilating and castrating yourself, making it to where you can never have kids, making it to where you can never feel pleasure again, these things are allowed. Or they were. They no longer are. Any doctor who has done a surgery on a minor, top surgery, any type of castration, mutilation surgery, transgender surgery, they should be imprisoned. Genuinely should be imprisoned. We should retroactively go to every single doctor who has done a transgender surgery on a minor and arrest them. They should go to prison. People go to prison for lesser crimes. Lock their asses up. Make sure that they can never practice medicine again. Ever. This has been followed up by almost getting rid of the childhood vaccine schedule, which is also another win for children and for parents. What the United States is planning to adopt is the Denmark system. Denmark has been ahead of the curve when it comes to this. Scandinavia was ahead of the curve when it came to the childhood COVID vaccines during the pandemic. And their system is basically deferring to doctor recommendations rather than a childhood vaccine recommended schedule. This is how it always should be. I've always said this, and this is something that I'm going to take into practice with my kids. Any doctor that I speak to should immediately offer multiple types of vaccines, tell me the difference between the vaccines, the difference in side effects, and recommend me a vaccine based on that. Or maybe not recommend the vaccine at all if it's not something, that kids can get, like hepatitis. Hepatitis is not something that some people argue. I'm not arguing this. I'm not saying whether I agree with this or not. I haven't thought about it, but a lot of people have argued that hepatitis is, it's something that it's really hard for children to get. They don't get it commonly. So why do I need to vaccinate my kids against this? But regardless, like I said, doctors should be able to offer multiple different types of vaccines, explain to me the differences, explain to me the side effects, explain to me which do they think is better for my kid and my kid's specific situation, and the same should go for every doctor across the United States. If they don't know the answers to these questions, they shouldn't be a doctor. We can't just let any asshole be a doctor. We can't just let any punk be a doctor who can't answer the one question that you have for them. If they can't answer it, they shouldn't be a doctor. Period. More power to the parents. This is a massive win. This is exactly what I voted for. This is exactly what I wanted RFK Jr. to do, and he's doing it. And I'm very proud of him, and I'm very grateful to him. And I know parents and children across the United States are also grateful. That's going to do it for this episode of Xendependently Minded. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Hope you got something good out of it. Hope you enjoy the holidays, whether you celebrate or not. I hope you enjoy the holidays. Hope you get to take some time off work, take some time to unwind, decompress, take care of your family, and start planning for the future. This is going to be the last episode for this year. I was thinking about doing a State of the Union. I might do a State of the Union address type of episode at the beginning of next year, sometime in January. I'm going to be pretty busy for the next couple weeks, so you guys hopefully should hear from me at the beginning of January with a regular episode or a State of the Union address kind of episode. Regardless, it's not too late to buy some merch. It's probably too late to buy some merch and get it in time for Christmas. We can get it for a New Year's gift. If you got anybody who was born in January, anybody whose birthday's in January, get some nice merch. Winter is still in full swing. Get a nice warm hoodie. Get some gloves. We don't sell gloves. Get some hats. Get some a decal for your car. Get a coffee mug to drink a good old cup of joe from your favorite podcaster. And it's a nice way to support the show. 100% of the proceeds get donated to the Child Mind Institute. I keep $0.00 from this. Every single sale gets donated to a good cause. The Child Mind Institute is a nonprofit organization that's aimed at helping families with children that suffer from mental illness, which is a lot. It's only getting worse. But on the bright side, it's also being looked into. A lot of science is being developed behind it. They need all the help that they can get. I don't really have a recommendation this week for you guys. Check out the other recommendations if you haven't been able to. All my recommendations are awesome. I'm just going to say it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will catch you on the next one. As always, stay safe, stay away from those crazies out there, and Merry Christmas.